Hello, hello, and welcome to my thought on this very hot Sunday at the end of September in London. And my thought for today is that I have my memoir published, and it's been selling at a steady pace with some of the most beautiful reviews um, that I have ever seen. And of course, I'm ecstatic. But I thought maybe you would like to know about the book too. And here is the book. There it is. And it's called Getting the Last Laugh. You can get it um, on Amazon, and you can get it on Kindle on Amazon. And I thought that for this thought, I would show you a little bit about what the book is about, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. This is a book about how I stumbled into comedy, and it gives you a background on what my life was before, so that you can see that there was absolutely no hint that I was going to take the stage um, for anything. There was no hint at all. In the book, in addition to a little bit of my story, not as much as I would like, but enough of my story so you get a flavor of the surprise that I ended up on the comedy stage. But there's also, for comedians, there are there's an explanation of how I schedule the tours that I do around the world, how that happened, and how I do it, because I don't have an agent. I did it myself. And of course, people who know me know that I travel mostly all over, in Europe and in the Far East. I've been to Manila, I've been to Moscow, I've been to China, and I've planned all that, and I show you exactly how I do it. And the other thing that's good for comedians is I have a set in there, and I'm not going to read that to you this time. I'm going to read you the prologue, but I have a set uh, that I have written out in there where I tell you exactly what I do if the joke doesn't work, exactly why I put the joke where I put it, and it is one of my hour shows. So some of you who have seen my hour shows will say, "Oh, I've read this before," but now you'll understand why I put it where I did. And the goal of this book is to show everybody, that anybody can do what I did. I have absolutely no special talent. I've developed a talent. It's taken me 16 years, but I've developed other talents too, and they've all taken a long time. And I always remember William David Thoreau, when he says, "Build your castles in the air, and then start to build the foundation." And that is the way I've done everything I've done in my life. That's how I got my television shows. That's how I published my books. That's how I did my comedy. But anybody can do it. In other words, if you put in the work, you're going to get the result. And anybody, nobody, um, you don't need special things, and you don't need money. I have done. It takes longer without money. I have done this without any money. I've done this without any backing. I've done this without any support. My family does not exist for me. They have given me absolutely no support. I have no relation, no partner, and I have no children. So that means that any of you, all by yourself, can accomplish whatever it is you want, whatever dream you want. I'm not saying you have to do comedy, but I am saying that you can do something that you've always wanted to do. You can do it. And I'm going to read you the beginning of the prologue, because I don't want to go on too long, but I want you to know how I began. And as I say in the beginning of the book, these events are what I remember. Um, um, some of the details, I'm sure, are unintentionally clouded over by time, and any inaccuracies are the fault of my memory, but the spirit of what I have said remains in the book. So this is the prologue on how I found comedy, which was my dream at 70. I had other dreams before, and I found them with much of the same way. I was a failure. I was 70 years old and had done a lot of things well enough, but I never made it big. People would tell me I was great, but when it came to getting the better job or the bigger prize, I was always an also-ran. I knew that my big moment would come eventually, but at my age, it was getting late in the game and nothing spectacular was on my horizon. I'd managed to earn a master's degree in journalism from Stanford University way back in 1964, and because I graduated top of the class, I knew I was destined to be a top writer for the New York Times or the Washington Post. However, destiny did not agree with me. Years and years of submitting, pushing, and hustling managed to land me a few feature articles in small magazines. That's all. Even when I did a series of magazine-length stories in the Toledo Blade, I still couldn't get on the regular staff. And then I saw it. I was trolling the net for jokes when I saw an ad in the for the San Francisco Comedy College, and I thought, this is it. No one can teach someone to be funny. It can't be done. This place is a ripoff, and I'm going to expose it to the world. You have to understand that I had no idea that stand-up comedy was a career. I had no idea because I had not had a television set since 1980. So I'd never seen real stand-up comedy. I had seen Johnny Carson and The Late Show, and that's about it. So I had no idea that this was a legitimate idea. I thought the man was crazy. I'd seen many stories written by reporters who had tried to live on a tiny pittance welfare gives to the starving. Their personal stories broke everyone's heart, and they went national, and those writers became famous, like I wanted to be, like I was so sure I could be. I was so sure. I took that class, and I told the world to beware of those comedy charlatans. I would finally, after 40 years of fruitless effort, make the big time. I called the number listed and left a message explaining that I was a freelance writer for 2 magazines and a newspaper, and I would like to take this class to write a story about it. In those days, we didn't have cell phones. We left messages on message machine. Half an hour later, I got a return call. It was Curtis Matthews, the man who had founded the college 4 years ago. I just got your message, he said, and I love small Jewish women. At last, destiny had come through. I am about 5 feet tall and so Semitic looking, people daven when they see me. I spew guilt like a rose spreading its fragrance. I am definitely Jewish. And when I walk into a bakery, they just hand me the bagels. I never have to ask. You have arrived, I said to Curtis, and I enrolled in his class. It was quite an evening for me. At that time, I rarely had any place to go at night, and I was, after all, 70 years old. Didn't have a partner or children. I had no family left. I lived alone, and I spent my days walking dogs, writing articles, and painting pictures no one wanted to buy. Suddenly, thanks to Curtis Matthews and his class, I had a great place to go where I could dress in something a bit more presentable than my sweats and have an experience that was brand new. I was very excited. As soon as I walked into the class, Curtis recognized me. Is this the place where you transform a bunch of plunks into funny people? I asked. He nodded. But you're already funny, he said. The only thing I can teach you is how to hold a microphone and what a routine is. You'll do the rest. Don't be so sure, I said. Why should I believe him? I had no idea what stand-up comedy was. I certainly didn't think of it as a profession or a way to earn a living. I looked around at the rest of the class, and I have to say, they were adorable. They ranged from 18 to 23, and each one had a special something that brought out the mother in me. Actually, I should say the grandmother. I was about 50 years older than most of them. The class lasted 8 weeks, and I loved being in it. I went to each class and I listened to the students talk about their problems and try to make jokes about their lives. I learned the structure of a joke, the rule of 3 that builds a laugh. Thus, I shop online all the time, and that's how I get 1, vitamins, 2, underwear, 3, and sex. I learned about callbacks and displacement. I want a man's man who always gets what he wants, and I found one in prison. That's displacement. But the best part of the class was that I had a wonderful time. Curtis was, and still is, a delightful man. And I respected, let's see if I can get this right. I respected the way he encouraged these young people who were so riddled with doubts and insecurities. Yet, even with all his encouragement, I didn't hear any of the students say anything I would call a joke. He explained that the formula for every joke is set up, the premise, and punch, the surprise. Set up. I got a lot from my mother. Surprise. Why? That's why I've been in therapy for 80 years. That's the punch. He had us finish sentences to get the idea. He said, I ran out, and you finished thus, of my lover's house and bumped into his wife. That kind of thing. Once you get the structure mastered, you can elaborate and turn your one-liners into stories. But first, you have to master the one-liners. Here's one of mine. I use this to open when I get on stage. They gave me 5 minutes up here because they think that's all the time I've got left. It works. Everything. After class, a few of us would have coffee together and talk about what we had just tried to learn and what each of us planned to do after the course was over. I was suddenly in a social group that was fun and interesting and far more stimulating than being with my dogs. I had 3 at the time. No, I think by that time I had 5. One of the students had just discovered that his mother and father both were gay. They couldn't have always been gay, I said. They had you, didn't they? Well, he said, that's what they tell me, but I look an awful lot like my Uncle Jim. When the talk drifted to dating, I was totally lost. Evidently, things had changed radically from when I was young, innocent, holding hands with my first boyfriend. The rule in 1940s was that if your date hadn't kissed you, mouth closed, by the 3rd date, the relationship was going nowhere. Now, according to my new social circle, if you didn't give them a blowjob on the first date, there was no future for the 2 of you. I, for one, wasn't sure what they meant. I thought a blowjob was what you did to balloons at a children's party. And what was all this talk about back doors? A back door is in the entrance to the kitchen. The class was very loving, forgiving, and lots of fun. The biggest thing I learned was that although sex was freer and conversational taboos that guided me when I was young no longer existed, people still had the same yearning to be accepted and loved, and they all felt confused about how to make that happen. And if you want to know the rest of how I got into comedy, you can buy the book. It is on Amazon. It is on your Amazon. For example, if you're in America, you want Amazon.com. If you're in the UK, you want Amazon.com.uk. You want to get on your own Amazon, and otherwise you're going to be paying ridiculous shipping unless you have Prime. The Last Laugh, it's by me, and that's an Irish dog named Fuji. So now you know the nuts and bolts of how my book began. And thank you so much for joining me for my Sunday thought.